Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm back with another patriotic decor DIY video. I'll be sharing 10 all new projects that are super easy and affordable to create. I really hope that you enjoy today's video, and now let's go ahead and jump right into it. For the first DIY today, I'm going to be starting with these two round wood plaques. The smaller one is about 3 3/4, and then the larger one is 4 3/4. And I'm painting both of those with my Waverly chalk paint in the color Ivory. Then once that paint was dry, I did want to add a little bit of distressing, so I'm using some Java colored paint on a small brush and just very lightly painting this color around all of the edges and little grooves on both of the round wood plaques. I'm also going to be using this unfinished wood table leg, and I did pick this one up from Lowe's, and I'm using that same ivory colored paint and I'm painting the entire leg. Once the paint is all dry, I am going to be adding some distressing just like I did with the round wood plaques. I used that same Java color around all of the edges and high points on the leg, and I really just love how it made everything pop. I'm also going to be using 3 American flags. You can get these at pretty much any store this time of year. And I did want to have the poles on the flags look a little bit more rustic. So I'm using a small paintbrush to apply my walnut wood tint from Folk Art. I just painted it on and then I wiped away the excess. And again, I did that to all 3 poles. Next, I'm using my drill to create 3 holes in the bottom of my table legs. I did 1 kind of more forward in the center and then 2 further back on each side. And then this is just going to be where I place my American flags. Then I'm going to be hot gluing the 2 wood plaques together with the larger one on the bottom. And then I'm using some hot glue to attach my table leg right in the center of my wood round plaques. For the last step, I'm just going to be adding a little detail piece with this star ribbon from Joann Fabrics. I tied it around my table leg and then just created a really simple bow. Here is the project all finished. I love this one so much. I think it looks so high-end and beautiful, and it was really easy and affordable to create. Next is DIY number 2. For this one, I'm going to be using this square unfinished wood piece from Dollar Tree. And the first thing I'm doing is painting the entire frame of the piece with my nautical chalk paint from Folk Art. And I did paint the back of this piece as well. Then I'm going to be painting the inside of the frame with my Waverly chalk paint in the color Ivory. Next, I'm going to be using some of this small white rope from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to be adding it around all of the outside edges around the frame, and I'm just using some hot glue to attach the rope. I just thought this would be such a cute little detail, and I love the way that it looks. For the inside of this piece, I'm going to be using this United States of America stencil from Amazon. I will have a link to it down in my description box in case you guys are interested. I'm just getting it centered and then using a piece of painter's tape to hold it into place. Then for the words United States of America, I am using my Tuscan red color from Folk Art. And then once that was dry, I did want to do the stripes on the side a different color. So I just used some painter's tape over the areas that I already painted so that I wouldn't get any of the opposite color over what I've already done. And then for the stripes, I'm using nautical also from Folk Art. And then I just continued with that same Tuscan red color for the 1776. Then once the paint was all dry, I removed the stencil, and you could leave it just like this, but I decided to add 2 stars. These are just unfinished stars I had in my stash, and I'm painting both of them with that same Tuscan red color. And then I'm going to be hot gluing both of the stars in the top corners of my sign. Here is the sign all finished. I think this one turned out super cute, and it is so easy to do and makes the perfect accent tabletop piece. Next up is DIY number 3. For this one, I'm going to be using this Welcome Autumn sign that I've had for a couple of years now from Michaels, and I don't ever use it anymore, and I figured I would just redo it. So I'm taking my Waverly chalk paint in the color Ivory, and I'm painting the entire piece. Then I'm going to be adding a little bit of distressing to the piece. I'm using my Java colored chalk paint on a smaller brush and then just very lightly painting around all of the edges. Then to go on the top of my piece, I'm going to be using the 1776 stencil from Amazon, and I will have a link to it down in my description box. I'm getting it centered onto my piece, and then I'm using a painter's tape around all four sides to hold it into place. I'm also going to be doing the outside like wreath stars that go around the larger star in the center a different color. So I'm using some painter's tape over those, and then I'm just going to be painting the middle star with the 1776 number with my Tuscan red chalk paint from Folk Art. Once that's painted and the paint has dried, I'm then going to remove the painter's tape from the stars that go around, and then I'm just going to be using that same tape to place over the red that I've already painted on. I always like to do this because if I don't, I always end up mixing the colors together and then having to go back and repaint. So the outside stars, I am going to be using the nautical color paint from Folk Art. And then once the paint has dried on everything, I'm just removing all of the painter's tape and the stencil. I did end up going back through and distressing the top of this piece with that same Java color, but while I was filming it, my camera died and it didn't get the full clip. So once I had that done, I'm then going to be moving on to these table legs. These ones were from a table that I had outside, and then the top part got kind of like gross and I had to throw it away, but the table legs were still in great shape. So here I'm just going to be freshening up the paint on them. I'm using my Waverly Paint and Ivory to paint all four of the legs. And I do still want to have like the distressed look of kind of how they look now, but I just needed to freshen them up. So I'm going to be taking that Java color once again and going around all of the high points with this color. And then once the high points are painted, I did take a little bit of that Java color on a stencil brush and I very lightly painted over the entire legs just to give them kind of like a really dirty rustic look, because personally that's the kind of patriotic decor that I love. For the last step, I'm going to be using some hot glue on the table legs to just glue them to the inside of the top piece to create my mini little table. This is what it looks like all finished. I think it would make a super cute little plant stand, and that's what I plan on doing with it. Moving on into DIY number 4, I'm going to be using one of these unfinished wood framed pieces from Hobby Lobby. And the first thing I'm going to be doing is just staining the entire frame piece. And I'm using my walnut wood tint from Folk Art to do that. I just used a paintbrush to apply the stain, and then I used a paper towel to wipe away the excess. Once that was all stained, I'm then going to be painting the inside of this piece with the Waverly chalk paint in Ivory. For the inside, I'm going to be using yet another stencil. This American flag stencil is from Amazon, and I will have a link to it in my description box. It was a little bit too large to place in the center of my frame, so I did have to cut it down just a little bit, but it didn't do anything to the actual stencil design. It just made it a little bit smaller. So once it was smaller, I was able to place it in the center, and then I just used some painter's tape to hold it into place. I'm then using a small paintbrush with my nautical color paint and just filling in the line around all of the stars so that I know exactly where I need to be painting all of the blue paint. So here it now shows that I have a rectangle that I need to be painting blue, and I'm just using that same nautical color to fill in the rectangle. Once that has dried, I'm then going to be placing the stencil back over top of it, and then I'm just going to be using some tape once again to go around all of the edges of the star so that I don't get any paint where I don't need it to be. And then I'm using the Waverly paint and Ivory to stencil on all of the stars. Then for all of the stripes, I'm using the Tuscan red color from Folk Art, and I'm using my Essential stencil brush to apply the paint. Once all of the paint has dried, I'm then removing all of the tape and the stencil. I thought it would be really cute to add this home wood word cutout. This one is from Joann Fabrics, and I'm going to be painting the home word with my rich black chalk paint from Folk Art. And then once the paint has all dried, I'm going to be hot gluing it right in the center of my American flag. Here is the sign all finished. This one looks so high end compared to how much it cost me to create this piece. It was only a few dollars, and I just love how it turned out. Next up is DIY number 5. For this one, I'm starting with this scrap piece of wood, and I'm going to be painting it with the Tuscan red colored paint. Then I'm also going to be using 3 pieces of wood shims that I had left over in my craft stash. I have cut them down a little bit. I have a larger piece, a like medium-sized piece, and then a smaller piece. As you can see here, I'm going to be creating the number 4 with the pieces. For the piece on the bottom, for like the line for the number 4, that one I'm painting with my ivory color paint from Waverly. Then the second largest piece I'm painting with my Tuscan red color from Folk Art, and then for the smallest piece I'm using the nautical color from Folk Art. I'm also going to be using these unfinished wood letters from Hobby Lobby to spell out the word July, and I'm painting each one of the letters with my ivory colored paint. I decided I wanted to add some stars onto the wood shim that's painted blue. So here I'm just placing one of the star stencils that I have in the center of the wood shim and then painting the stars that ivory color. This stencil did come in a pack with some of the other 4th of July stencils, and again, I'll have them all linked down in my description box. Next, I'm using some hot glue to attach the blue color shim on top of the white color shim, and then the red one onto the blue and white one to create a number 4. Then I'm going to be just placing all of my letters to spell out the word July on the right side of the red shim. Once I have them into place, I'm then just hot gluing each one of the letters back down. For the last step, I'm using hot glue to attach my number 4 to the base piece. And this is what it looks like all finished. It is the perfect tabletop or shelf decor piece, and I just think it is so cute and a little bit different than all of your other patriotic decor that you see out in stores. Next is DIY number 6. For this one, I'm going to be starting with this piece from Dollar Tree. I've already actually cut some of it off and used it for another project, but it's the perfect base piece. So here I'm just starting by painting the entire piece with my nautical colored paint. Then I'm going to be using 3 4x4 square pieces of unfinished wood, and I'm painting all 3 of these pieces with the Tuscan red chalk paint. Over top of the wood pieces, I'm going to be using stencils US and A. These are Scrabble tile letter stencils, and they are from Amazon. I'm using some painter's tape to just hold the stencil into place around my wood piece, and then I'm using ivory colored paint to stencil on the U and the little number 1. And then I did the exact same thing for the second and third pieces of wood for S and A. I just secured the stencil with some painter's tape and used that same ivory color. After all of the paint was dry on all of my wood pieces, I'm then removing all of the painter's tape and the stencils. I did want to add a little bit of distressing to my bottom base piece, so here I'm just using a smaller paintbrush with that ivory color, and I'm just going around all of the edges to give it, again, more of that distressed look that I like. And then once that was painted, I decided I wanted to add some stars around the bottom as well. So here I'm using this star ribbon from Joann Fabrics, and I'm just hot gluing it around the wood piece and then just securing it with hot glue along the back side. And then once I had that on, I decided to add some of this this white cotton cord around the top and the bottom of the star ribbon. And again, just securing it into place with some hot glue along the back side. For the last step, I'm using hot glue along the bottom of each one of my wood tile pieces and then just placing it right in the center of my base piece. And I'm obviously spelling out U, S, and A. Here is the piece all finished. It's another easy and affordable piece for this 4th of July. Next, we have the 7th project in today's video, and I'm going to be using one of these unfinished wood trays from Dollar Tree. And the first thing I'm doing to the tray is painting the entire outside with that nautical color chalk paint. Once that paint has dried, I'm then going to be cutting down this 4th of July or patriotic paper, and I believe this one is from Hobby Lobby or Joann Fabrics. So I just cut the paper down to size so that it will fit right in the center of my wood tray. I'm then putting some Mod Podge on the entire back side of my paper, and then I'm placing it right in the center of my wood tray, and then just pushing out any bubbles that were in the paper. And then once that's dried down a little bit, I'm using that Mod Podge once again and just putting it over top of the paper and using it as a sealer. You could leave the tray as is, but of course I like to add distressing to everything, so I'm using some of my ivory paint on a small paintbrush and just very lightly painting that around all of the edges of my tray. This is what the mini tray looks like all finished. I think it is so cute, and I would love to do something like this to a larger tray as well. It was really affordable and only cost a few dollars. Next is DIY number 8. For this one, I'm going to be recreating the sign that I got from Dollar General. It was actually 50% off, so I only paid $2 for it. And the first thing I'm going to be doing is just wiggling and popping off the arrow that's in the center. And then it did leave obviously some like ripped paper in the middle, but I'm just going to be painting over that and re-gluing it on, so it was no big deal. I painted the inside of this framed piece with my ivory colored paint, and then I actually decided that I was just going to pop the piece out since it would be a lot easier to paint my frame without having the inside piece. So once I did that, I ended up painting the entire outside frame piece with my nautical colored paint. And then for the arrow, I did paint that with my Tuscan red colored paint, and I did have to do a few coats just to get the word all covered up. For this project, I'm using these unfinished wood letters from Hobby Lobby to spell out the word fireworks, and I'm painting each one of my letters with my ivory colored paint. I'm then just placing my letters onto my arrow to kind of get a feel for where I want them to be. Once I have them all set, I'm just going to be hot gluing each one of the letters back down. Before putting everything back together, I did end up distressing the back piece, and I'm just using my Java colored chalk paint on a stencil brush to do that. And I mainly did around the edges, and then I took whatever was left over on my brush and just very lightly painted over the top surface. I'm then using hot glue around the back side of my frame piece, and then just placing my back piece back into place. And then I'm using some hot glue once again to secure the arrow right in the center of the frame. Next, I'm going to be creating mini fireworks, and I'm using these dowels that I've already cut down, and I have 5 of them that I'm going to be using. They're 3/4 inch thick by 2 1/4 inch in length. I'm painting all 5 of them with my ivory colored paint. Then once the ivory colored paint is dry, I'm using a small paintbrush with my Tuscan red color to paint on stripes. The stripes are going to be a little bit distressed looking. I just think that they look really cute this way. So again, I did that to all 5 of the pieces. For the tops of the fireworks, I'm going to be using this paper cord from Dollar Tree. I'm not really sure what it's called, but I'm going to be cutting 5 of these pieces that are about 1 inch or 2 in length, and then once I have them cut, I'm going to be hot gluing each one of them on top of the fireworks. I'm then going to be using some hot glue to attach the fireworks to the very top of the sign. I did them kind of on a diagonal and then on top of each other as well for the left and right side. And then once I had those ones attached, I wanted to add one more right in the center. Here's the sign all finished. Another really easy, affordable project in today's video, and I am going to be using it on one of my end tables this year. Next up is a DIY number 9. For this one, I'm going to be using a scrap piece of wood that is 7 1/4 by 4 1/2. I'm painting the entire piece with my ivory colored paint. And then I'm going to be using the stripes from the American flag stencil that I used earlier on in the video. I'm just going to be placing the stencil onto my wood piece and just making sure it's centered nicely. And then I'm using my Tuscan red color to paint the stripes on my piece. Once everything is all dry, I'm going to be removing the stencil. I'm using another piece of scrap wood that is 5 1/2 by 2 inches, and I'm painting this piece with my nautical color paint. I'm also going to be using US and A unfinished wood letters. These ones I believe are from Hobby Lobby, and I'm painting all of them with the nautical colored paint. Once the paint is dry, I'm then just going to be seeing exactly where I want them to be on my wood piece, and then I'm going to be hot gluing each one of the letters down. For a little accent piece, I'm going to be using these 2 unfinished wood stars. One is a little bit smaller than the other one. The larger star, I'm using the Tuscan red color on it, and then on the smaller one, I'm painting that one with the ivory colored paint. I'm now going to be cutting a piece of jewelry wire and then just folding that in half and twisting the 2 pieces together. Then I'm going to be hot gluing the white star right on top of the red star, and then using more hot glue to attach that jewelry wire right to the back side of my stars. I'm then using hot glue on the bottom of my striped wood piece and attaching it to the center of the blue piece. And then I'm using hot glue along the top back side of my striped piece to attach my jewelry wire with my stars. Then I decided I wanted to add one more mini wood star, so here I just painted it with the nautical colored paint and then hot glued it right in the center of the other 2 stars. Here is the piece all finished. I did not realize it until I was editing it, but it looks very similar to one that I created in last week's video, but it is a little bit different, and it was super affordable, and I love how this one turned out. Next is the 10th and final project in today's video. I'm going to be using this mini little unfinished wood flower pot. I got it from a store called Dollar Treasure, and I'm just going to be painting the bottom portion of the pot with the Tuscan red colored paint, and then I'm going to be painting the top lip part of this flower pot with my nautical colored paint. I'm then using a smaller brush with my Waverly chalk paint in ivory, and I'm just painting on some really messy stripes along the bottom of the pot over top of the red color. I'm then using this small white rope and just tying it in a knot along the front side of my pot, and then I'm using a tiny bit of hot glue underneath the knot just to make sure that it stays in place and doesn't move around. I'm then adding a small piece of floral foam inside of the pot. To go inside of my pot, I'm going to be using these 3 unfinished wood stars. I'm painting one of them with the Tuscan red color, one of them ivory, and then the 3rd star with the nautical color. I then cut 3 pieces of jewelry wire and then folded them in half. I'm then going to be just twisting them up and then twisting them around my finger to create like a little curly Q. I'm then using some hot glue to attach the jewelry wire to the back of each one of my stars. I'm then placing the jewelry wire with the stars right inside of the floral foam, and then for the last finishing touch, I'm going to be using some hot glue right on the floral foam and then just attaching some of my Spanish moss from Dollar Tree inside of my pot. And this is the project all finished. I think it is so cute, and it is the perfect little piece to add to a tiered tray. I really hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, I hope that you will consider subscribing. Please be sure to hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of my future videos. I always love hearing from you guys in the comments down below, letting me know which project from today's video was your favorite. I do want to thank all of you so much for watching.